Hello everyone, and today we'll be talking about the order of operations. In general, this entire topic is going to be covered in Unit 1, and the basis of Unit 1 essentially is using numbers, subtraction, basic arithmetic. Because this is the first unit, most of this is something that you should have learned in, say, grade 8 or grade 9. In general, we're just expanding it in more complex equations and such not. So I presume most of you are familiar with BEDMAS, which will be the basis of the order of operations. Let me first explain what the order of operations are. The order of operations is a set of order in which you follow to solve an equation. So, for example, if you have an equation with both multiplication and addition, which one are you going to solve first, and then which one are you going to add second? In general, I believe that this is pivotal, and you essentially need to know this throughout your math career and maybe even post-secondary education. So, in general, BEDMAS stands for bracket, exponent, division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. So the order of operations runs from top to bottom. If you have an equation, you first solve the brackets, whatever's inside the brackets, then you move on to exponents, division, multiplication, addition, and then subtraction. So let me begin with one small question, and that is -5 plus 3 minus 7 squared divided by 2. So in grade 8, you probably would have seen something like this. We're just expanding on it. This is a very beginner or entry-level question. And so out of all of this, what are you going to solve first? So you can see the two sets of brackets here, the one bordering -5 and the one bordering 3 minus 7. In general, when it says bracket, it means solve whatever's inside brackets and not like move -5 to anywhere else. So in general, what you guys want to do is you guys want to first solve this area. So -5 plus whatever's inside there, which 3 minus 7 is -4 squared. You must not forget that. Divided by 2. In general, therefore you have like a solid equation now. You've completed all the bracket steps, so you can forget about that. And -5 plus -4 exponent to power of 2 divided by 2. Now the next step now, look down the BEDMAS bracket exponent. And of course you see an exponent here. So -5 plus -4 times -4, which is -4 to the power of 2, which is 16 divided by 2. Now you're left with a fairly simple equation, and I believe many of you will be able to solve this easily. And well, if we take a deeper look into this, you'll see that you cannot add -5 first because, of course, addition and subtraction are below division and multiplication. And of course, you see a division sign here. That means that you must first divide -16 plus -16 divided by 2, which is 8. Sorry, not -16, 16. So -5 plus 8, of course, you want to add like this signs, and these equals 3, and then that's your final answer. So if this is a word question, you say that whatever this equation is, it equals 3. And we move on to the next set of questions. So let me repeat this. The order of operations from here: bracket, exponent, division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. As you can see here, 10 minus 2 bracket 3 plus 8 divided by -2 bracket to the exponent to the power of 2 divided by -2. That's the entire equation. And so if you just take a look at this, it looks very, very, very complicated. And as such, it really isn't. So in order to solve this properly, you're going to have to go through the order of operations, BEDMAS. So let's take a look here. So first things first, you see a giant big square bracket. You see smaller brackets here, which don't really matter since they're covering up -2. And what you're gonna want to do is, obviously, since bracket is first, you're gonna want to disregard these for now and solve what's inside these square brackets. So we're gonna go 10 minus 2, 3, and within the square brackets actually is another set of order of operations that you can do, and that is negative versus positive. I mean, division versus positive. And of course, knowing PEMDAS or BEDMAS, it's always using division, doing division first over addition. And thus, 3 plus, what's 8 divided by -2? That would be, well, more or less minus. That would be -4 to the power of 2, divided by -2. There. So now it already looks far more manageable. You have a pretty simple equation inside the square bracket, and the exponent. That's about it. So then the next step you can see is, well, the square bracket still isn't solved. So we have to keep going and make it so that it is, well, solved. And that is -2 to the power of 2 divided by -2. So 10, -2, -1 to the power of 2 divided by -2. So right now, completely manageable. You see here it has the exponent, and that's next in line. So we finished brackets. Now we're moving on to exponents. And what happens there is 10 divided by 2. And then this becomes 1, because a -1 times -1 is of course 1. And then you divide that by -2. So in general, when it comes to multiplication and division, there is no real order. You can do it in any order. Same with addition and subtraction. The only distinction really is exponent and brackets. So really you can do it in any order, whichever you find more pleasing or easier. In this case, it's pretty obvious. Always multiply first here because, well, you're multiplying 2 by 1. It's easier than multiplying dividing 1 and then multiplying by a 2. So -2 times 1 is of course still -2. You have to divide by -2. You see how I would move the brackets here? Ideally, you could keep them. You could not. They're completely optional. You just make the equation look more manageable and helps and prevents like confusion for the audience or the person grading your test. So 10 minus 2 divided by 2, which would be +1, since that's that. And now you've essentially came around to solving it, and the answer is 11. Well, that was a pretty simple question, despite it looking really, really hard at the beginning. And I believe such is the magic of order buffer. So, third question and final question. We're gonna end off with a pretty simple general question. And on my worksheet, at least on my part, it says that in addition to the basic order of operations, there's another section in which it will be tested on substituting a variable. And in general, I chose a pretty easy one. In general, the concept is the same. Order of operations, you plug it in, you get the numbers, and then you solve them. And with this, what you're going to want to do is, so here you have the order of operations, and x equals -2 for x cubed minus 5. And what we're going to want to do is, of course, substitute it in to the equation, which I'm pretty sure many of you are familiar with. And there we go. So, in general, it becomes a pretty easy order of operations BEDMAS question. But I want to warn you all that, first off, 3 here, the 3 exponent here, is only applied to the -2 and not the 4. So, keep that in mind. If it was, say, if the question, this is a hypothetical question, but if it was like this, then of course there would be an entirely new step, which is applying the -3 to the 4 and also to the x, which would make it far more complicated, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Just a heads up for later questions where that does become a problem. You do indeed apply 3 to both 4 and x separately. So from here, you can take a quick peek, and that is to just quickly solve it. -2 cubed is, first off, -2 cubed is -2 times -2 times -2, -2 times -2, 4 times -2, of course, -8, and that seems simple enough, doesn't it? 4 times -8, -32 minus 5, and boom, you've gotten your answer. -2 plus -5, -37. So you've solved the equation, and if this was a word question where x equals -2, the answer would be -37. In general, that is all I will cover for the order of operations. It's a pretty simple, pretty straightforward topic. And in general, you'll be using this throughout your entire math career, throughout high school, through every single math equation, you'll be using this. So it's really important to get a good ground in the order of operations. And that will be all.